Audio has this very interesting quality of just embedding itself in your head. We all know about those, what is it called? Earworms, right? Oh my gosh, I can't stop
Yeah.
singing this song, right? Now imagine you have a nice jingle and it's a way for the brand to get into the head of folks. I'm not saying that's a good thing necessarily. I'm just saying that that's an indication of the power of audio, of where it just goes in intimately. Now let's not forget all of us human beings, but the first 9 months of our lives, we're in the dark and we're just listening.
Welcome to Audio Branding, the hidden gem of marketing. Sound plays a more important role in human behavior and our decision-making than you may realize. In this podcast, I'll help you understand the art and science of sound so you can better influence others in business and your life. I'm your host, Jody Krangle. Let's delve a little deeper. This is the second part of our discussion in the Power of Sound Club on Clubhouse about easy options for marketing with digital audio.
So if you happen to watch a movie and maybe you're watching a horror movie and you don't really want to be scared, what do? You turn off the sound, right? I mean, you don't turn off the picture because that will give you a hint as to what's actually happening.
Right.
But if you turn off the sound, then you aren't scared.
The emotion is
the
taken
emotion
out.
is lost. Exactly. So people use the audio to make you care. So think about how that's being used in advertising and marketing and branding. If you just use the visual, yeah, you get the idea of what they're about. Okay, sure. But you don't really care.
Sure.
And audio is what makes you care.
Just a quick corollary to that, I think, is the idea of, take a different track of music and put it under the same visuals, and you can end up with a very different result.
Exactly. Yes. You've seen some of those new trailers, right? Like where they took, what was it? The new Winnie the Pooh movie? What was that? Oh my God. Ewan McGregor. Remember that one? Like way back.
I think I missed it.
It was called Christopher Robin. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was a movie about him seeing his childhood Pooh Bear, right? Like, and having it appear in his life as he's walking around. I don't know what kind of a, fever dream that was, but when they marketed that, they marketed it as a family-friendly movie, right? So as an exercise, some film students took the previews and whatever film they could get a hold of, and they made it into a horror preview.
Oh my goodness.
With different music, they sepia colored the video, and then they had Winnie the Pooh popping up all over the place in really weird places, and it looked like he was stalking Christopher Robin, like
a different kind of fever dream.
Very different kind of fever dream, exactly. But really, all they did was change the music. It's really all they did. They changed the color maybe on the video, but they didn't change the video. That had all been shot. It was the same stuff from the same movie, but you put different audio on it, and it has a completely different feel.
Yeah. So let's go back to that executive and think of how you can convince them that audio is very compelling. One way I would do it is to say, when was the last time that a picture, an image, or a piece of text stuck in your head the way a jingle sticks in your head, right? Like da 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 da, right? That sticks in my head. In fact, I think I told Jody 25 times whenever I talk to her, I say this. I don't eat at McDonald's, to be honest with you, and I don't watch a lot of TV. I watch YouTube here and there, but these guys, of course, they'll find a way to play their commercial. And every time I pass by McDonald's, I start saying that without even knowing I'm saying it. I hear myself, what the hell, right? I hear myself saying that, right? So it sticks. So audio has this very interesting quality of just embedding itself in your head. We all know about those, what is it called? Earworms, right? Oh my gosh, I can't stop singing this song, right? Now imagine you have a nice jingle and it's a way for the brand to get into the head of folks. I'm not saying that's a good thing necessarily. I'm just saying that that's an indication of the power of audio, of where it just goes in intimately. Now let's not forget all of us human beings, but the first 9 months of our lives, we're in the dark and we're just listening, right? Now, I think that's probably one of the reasons why audio is so important to us, right? We started as listening creatures more than seeing creatures, and I think that manifests itself in many ways in our lives. Um, so another thing I think one could say perhaps to an executive is, look, it's easy for, like you were saying, like it's easy for folks to speak, right? So maybe you ask a question, and then people will answer it. Maybe send them a link, say, we would like to get your feedback on the product we just launched. Maybe Taco Bell asks them about the triple chunky triple whatever taco, right? People go and they speak and they just talk, right? They say, I love it, blah, blah, right? Now imagine you get lots and lots of that. That's audio. Now we have the technology, it exists, that transcribes audio almost perfectly. All of a sudden you, the marketer who's always looking for text for your SEO purposes, have all this user-generated content. And the beauty, we go back to the word authenticity, the beauty about user generated content is that it is not from an actor, it's from a person who feels things that are real about your product, and they tell you, right? And then you can collect them and you can do a blog post, right? So another low-hanging fruit where content goes into, there's technology that transcribes it. You can just, before you know it, you have 5 blog posts for your next 2 weeks and your SEO goes up, right? Very concrete things like that.
I just wanted to kind of cap off some of the things that you're saying, and probably end up plugging your company here a little bit as well, is just back to that idea of 10 concrete things. I'm conscious of the time. So if anyone has specific things they want to cover, definitely, as Jody said, be sure to ask a question. But in terms of those concrete things, Ahmed, you had brought up user-generated content and the idea of reusability. And I think that's something that, for the most part, if I'm looking at this list of 10 that is on that link, can all be connected. So you can start with a podcast and you can use that audio in other places. You can run a transcript and then you have text and collect things from your audience. And there are easy ways of doing that. And I think that's something where, we could certainly go into any of the details. Ahmed has a company with Lingo that makes being able to collect audio from your audience through your website an easy thing to do, and then reuse it in other places. Is the actual application of these, both for collecting audio and then sharing it, really has expanded a lot. And the tech behind that and being able to put audio in different places in your marketing has greatly expanded in the last few years.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I do love using with Lingo and use it for testimonials all the time. So both my podcast and my voiceover services use with Lingo in a sort of rotating playlist, I guess, of people who've given me voice recordings that have said nice things about what I do, which is very much almost more affirming, I think, for other people who are listening than just reading something. I think we already really covered that.
You can hear, if you go to our website, you can hear the real enthusiasm. These are folks who love Jody, right? There's no acting there. Really. These are folks who did it on the first, probably second tape. Maybe they stumbled, but it's not rehearsed. You can tell, I think Jenna said, or maybe Jody, you can tell if somebody's acting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can.
Or if this is, because somebody could delegate, say, can delegate to an intern, can you please write, a nice thing about this?
Sure.
Lady, right? And they write it and they send it. Okay, I didn't know. But here, actually, the folks are, and if you go to our website, you'll see, because we use our own product. Anyway, so the ease of use, and also the transcription now is crazy with OpenAI and all these kinds of products and all that outside. It's just, you could have the most mangled piece of audio, and I don't know how this AI does it. It just transcribes it almost perfectly, right? So it converts audio to text, and as we all know, folks, digital SEO folks, they live and die by the text, right? Still, they need that content to be able to please Google, so they continue with their SEO.
Well, and also starting to be the ability to search audio on the fly, and whether that's Google or different search engines has really increased in the technology for that. So I think it really bolsters the idea of being able to use audio and still getting a lot of the benefits that you would get from text, whether you're sharing that text or not. And I think it's a good plug to put in terms of accessibility is for all of the benefits that we've talked about for audio, being able to pair that with a text version so that you're really meeting all of your customers where they are, whether it's from a specific accessibility standpoint or even a preference. I think it's always, to the extent possible, to be able to have both those options. Again, just makes your message, I think, more widely available.
Are you looking for ways to improve your company's or podcast's impact? You'd be surprised how powerful the use of an intentional audio branding strategy can be. Want to know more? I have a free downloadable PDF that gives you my 5 tips for implementing an intentional audio strategy at voiceoversandvocals.com/audio-branding-strategy. That location does ask to put you on a mailing list, just to send you updates on when the new podcasts come out. But if you really don't want to give your email out, I understand. Just contact me directly. My email is all over my website, and I'll make sure you get that PDF without needing to sign up anywhere. If you do sign up, though, you also get access to a resources section called The Studio, where I have videos, white papers, and PDFs, discounts from my guests, and snippets of audio from my guests that no one else gets to hear. So maybe it's worth your while. Totally up to you. And of course, if you're looking for voiceovers, you can get in touch with me about that too. Now, back to the podcast.
Yeah, we didn't rehearse this little thing here, but we just launched yesterday, where the audio, if you go to, or you guys, if you go to your carousels, you should see in there, if you hover over, there'll be a transcription. If you click to show you the transcription, so that sort of covers this issue. It was actually a client who asked for it, city government who asked for it because they wanted to have accessibility.
Oh, great idea! Yeah.
So it didn't occur to me at all. That's why, a piece of advice to everyone who wants to launch a company: make sure you have clients who tell you what features to build instead of you and your team fantasizing and creating stuff that nobody will use. Anyway, so other things like, we have clients who use for their bio, right? So the person has a text bio, but they also, they talk about themselves a little bit, give it some color so you can get a sense of character of the person. Just brings it to life, right? So executives, for instance, in their page, right? They have their their text and also their image and a little bit of an audio. You should also launch an Amazon Echo skill, Alexa. That's out there, and that's something that people are using more and more. Smart speakers now, I think they are in something like 40 or 50% of the homes out there. And what else? Many things you can see in that list. Things like adding audio. Here's one that the customer dropped on me. Was it yesterday or this morning? After we released it, and that is an audio book. We were talking and they were brainstorming with me about an audio book about their company, right? Our company, and maybe the founder talks about it and gives the story of the company as a narrative. Everybody loves a story, right? So instead of a company having a website and has a color scheme and it's just a website and an app, here's a story about the company, right? And when you go to the company, you want to know how did it come about? What is its mission? What are people? And it's told, maybe perhaps it's a conversation between two people, something like that, right? Again, audio, story, it's linear. When people listen, they usually listen all the way to the end. If you are captivating, you tell your story well, and it's a good story, as opposed to text where they may be distracted. I think one of the statistics, I don't have it, but one of the statistics that's just amazing is how the percentage of people who, when they start a podcast, they listen to the whole episode. Maybe you guys know about that. It's just amazing. They sit and listen to it, probably because maybe it's the weekend, they're listening to it, and this is their time to listen to it, or in the car listening to it. But listening to audio is a special medium in the sense that folks usually become patient as they listen to it, right? As they consume it. They don't want to skip because they can't easily skip, and they just embrace it and become immersed in it. At least that's how I engage with audio.
Jen, did you have something you wanted to say?
I was just going to cover, I think, a little. I had thought, Ahmed, you were going to go towards talking about using audio within blog posts or newsletters. I think a lot of these again, really, at the end of the day, I think anywhere that you're sharing your message, almost always there's an opportunity to either deliver that message in an audio format or in a companion piece. So you're giving your audience a different way to consume, so that if they are on the go and they, don't want to have the screen, or they're, it feels like we all have multiple screens at once, which we can argue whether that's a good or a bad thing, but providing those opportunities. And I'm looking over this list. I think we've covered, did we get through all 10, Ahmed?
Let's see. A couple of things like infographics, right? This is something that I was brainstorming with the prospect. What they want is they have an infographic, and because the infographic, obviously it's two dimensional, the space, there's space constraints, and so they were thinking there would be a call, like if you want to find out more about this, you can just ask your Echo about tell me more about X, right? Instead of packing a lot of text, so you have infographic statistics. Maybe you want to know more about X, and so a way of jumping off from the infographic and asking your Echo. Now, the situation is where you're looking at an infographic in your laptop, you have an Echo, and then from there you can gather more information. So these are kind of things that that some of our customers are sort of brainstorming with us, and they're trying to, in essence, leverage the fact that audio doesn't take space, right? It's not like text or visual, it takes space. Sort of perpendicular. Think of it as perpendicular content, right? Can you add more content by just having a call out from, say, a graphic that says, here's the basics of it, 5% of people or 20% do this and that. If you want to find out more, just ask Echo, Alexa, this question, and it will tell you more. And then they will branch into their Alexa skill, it will tell them more. So that's sort of an interesting idea that came up. And there is, the thing about this is that it's an emerging medium. We are in the early stages. Think of this being the stage where this is the equivalent of where companies were wondering in 2007, what is this Twitter thing and what is this Facebook thing, and or 8 or 10, maybe 10, right? I think 7 they were just born. Imagine 10, 11. I remember very clearly in a company where I worked, we were just completely confused about what to do with social media, right? Facebook and Twitter. And it took a while for us to figure it out as a space, now everybody, of course, has a Facebook page. Everybody has a Twitter channel. Everybody has a YouTube channel, more or less, right? In terms of companies. So if you're a company, you don't have a Facebook page, that's not, there's something there. That's sort of it's become a table stake. But it took a while to get to that point where everything coalesced, right? I think we're experiencing more or less the same thing, right? Audio, podcasts becoming a thing. Folks finding more and more, becoming more and more comfortable when they go to a website and they see an audio accompanying an article, right? So now it's becoming more of a commonplace, right? That was not the case, 2 years ago. And I think we'll see more of those popping up where folks are going to be creative and innovative into adding audio to their mix.
Yeah, I also want to mention, because I've done a synthetic voice, there are synthetic voices being made specifically to be in use for news sites. So for article-heavy websites that someone may not want to read, actually visually, they may just be able to click a play button and have it read to them by a synthetic voice. That's pleasant enough. But it can be done on the fly in the moment. And that way you don't need to employ a voice actor, which I hate to say, because I'm not into taking work away from me. But at the same time, this is stuff that would need to be done on a momentary basis with huge amounts of articles. So it makes sense that you would have a synthetic voice do that. But the ability to have it spoken to you so that you could read that article, quote, read that article while you're in the car, as opposed to having to actually read an article and put your entire focus on that. I think there's a lot to be said for that. And we're getting very spoiled in that way, in that we're used to multitasking now.
So things that don't fit into our multitasking often will get left behind.
Right. The list of newsletters that go unread because you don't quite have time to read. I'm glad that you brought that up for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into that. Go ahead, Jen. Did you have something more you wanted to?
Oh no, I just wanted to echo that, and I appreciate the call out. It's impressive how much, again, the technology has moved forward even in the last few years. I'm excited to see where it goes. There's a few other kind of specific examples I could throw out, but I wanted to just pose a question. I know the audience hasn't asked any, but just to see if anyone has used audio in any of their marketing or kind of day-to-day efforts, or had any experiences or questions along those lines. I think it's interesting to see what again, how people are using this in the real world, whether that's podcasting, any of these things that we've mentioned, or maybe some that we've missed. I'm sure there are several.
Yeah, certainly if anyone in the audience wants to raise their hand and join the discussion, you're more than welcome to do that. I will say that I am a user of Witlingo, so I have those audio testimonials on my website and on my podcast's website. I have a podcast that talks specifically about sound, so it's kind of meta within the digital audio space. And then I also have these Clubhouse rooms, which are sort of a companion to the podcast. So I'm using social audio as well. And they happen at regular intervals. So Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, you can usually find me here. And I find it really adds a lot to the experience, and it still allows my listeners to be fairly passive in their listening. They don't have to participate if they don't want to, but showing up in the audience here is appreciated, and all of that, and listening to the podcast is of course appreciated. It's just ways to make deeper connections, and I think that audio, as we've discussed, is a really good way to do that.
I know we're all dealing with a lot these days, so I really wanted to acknowledge those that have gone out of their way to leave an honest review of this podcast. Millie Alto writes, "Binge-worthy podcast. Great voice with great content makes it a delight to binge listen to and learn what you are missing in your advertising repertoire. They truly are hidden gems of marketing. It could be a whole new paradigm for how you strut your brand." Great point, Millie. I certainly agree that more people should be thinking about the sound that's associated with their brand. I have a whole podcast about it, in fact. Thanks so much for your review. And now back to the show.
Jen, do you have any specific clients that you've had use your podcasting services that you think have expanded beyond their podcast into other digital audio spaces?
That is a great question. It's something that we're starting to explore a lot more. It is interesting. I have found people tend to really be focused, and again, they come to us to do a podcast, but have started to branch out. And I have one client in particular that we're working with right now that we're really flipping it on the approach on its head, because they're in the middle of a rebrand. They had recorded a ton of audio with their internal team, thought leaders. We were working on getting it all edited together into some episodes to be able to promote their company culture, and just found that the podcast episode wasn't coming together. And so we decided to put a pin in that, but realized that the audio that they had collected had given them a ton of information about their audience, about, in this case, internally, and their team. And so we are going to start collecting stories that they want to tell, using their internal folks and some of their customers, without necessarily knowing upfront where we want that to go, and are going to define the applications for that audio after we've collected the stories. So we'll have these conversations. We'll say, you know what, we do think that there's a piece that fits here with the podcast that they already have running. They've got, they're going to be doing a blog series on Web3 this month. So we've got some pieces that we can embed in those articles. And again, really looking at starting with the audio and then defining where we can use that within their marketing efforts. So I'm pretty excited. It's, again, new. We're in production with that, but I'm pretty excited to see where it goes.
Wow, yeah. I'm excited to hear how that turns out. Yeah, because it's interesting that I think a lot of companies are interested in doing things with audio, but they don't have the implementation down pat yet.
Yes. It's, because it's always in the details, right?
Yes.
Like, I think that's why it's great to have tools that make it simple. But when it comes to actually putting it out into the world and in a way that you feel comfortable putting on your website and your blog and everything else, it again can get lost in the implementation.
Yeah, totally. Well, we are about 5 minutes out from ending today, but I wanted to give Ahmed and Jenn both a chance to say anything that you feel needs to be said before we end here. So go ahead, Ahmed.
Yeah. So Jenn was talking about exciting things down the pike, and there definitely are exciting things down the pike with all kinds of AI stuff that's happening. I'll just describe one of these that I think is exciting. Is coming up on our product. I hate plugging our plugin, but it's just a way to illustrate
Don't
how
hate
fast
it. It's good. It's all good. I love this product of yours, so go for it.
I appreciate it. You're the best. So the one of the things we're doing is we'll let folks who are using Witlingo upload now. If you want to upload an hour's long audio, you can do that, and then we will transcribe it. But also the innovation is two things. One is summarization of that text, right? It can be summarized by half. The AI is just crazy. And then the second one is translation. So if it's Spanish into English, we're starting with just Spanish and English, or English to Spanish. It's going to be part of the product coming out probably 2 weeks, right? So these are the kinds of things that will enable us to push the envelope. Is enabling folks, instead of reading, say, an article that is 1,000 words, this crazy AI somehow knows how to capture that 1,000 words into 250 words and then gives you the gist of it, right? Again, human beings are insatiable. They just want more value, right? And this is one of the things that's coming down the pike, and with lots of other stuff. Anyway, just wanted to just emphasize the point that this is a evolving target, so to speak, in a good way. That one has to always be on the lookout for being able to deliver value and also differentiate themselves from the competition, and a lot of good stuff like that. And audio is one space right now where one can do a lot of that. I mean, social media and all that, it's just everybody's become a commodity. Audio is where folks can now innovate and differentiate themselves.
Yeah, I love it. And so true. Yeah, there's a lot happening. I mean, there's a lot happening everywhere right now, but I think audio is definitely coming into its own right now because it fits into our lives in the way that we need it to. And I think that's really key here, that we are looking for ways to make our lives easier and to have things fit in instead of us having to fit around them. So audio does that. It's kind of amazing that way. Jenn, is there anything else that you want to add before we end off here?
No, I think we've really covered it. And I guess I take that back. I will just say, to your point about fitting in with the life that we have and around it, and being accessible, is just that reminder that it doesn't have to be an additional thing that you're doing. Oh, now I have to do something in audio in addition to all of these other things. Is really looking at how you can use one medium and feed off of the other, as Ahmed had been saying, with transcripts or generating blog posts from a podcast or a Clubhouse talk. And so it's getting the most value out of the effort that you're putting into any of your marketing efforts.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. So thank you so much for everyone who has been here. And thank you, Ahmed. Thank you, Jenn, for being here. Really appreciate your information and this great discussion about sound, which of course I always appreciate, and your expertise in the area, which is very much appreciated. And thank you everyone who has decided to join us today. We'll have another one of these soon.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you for hosting, as always.
Thanks so much.
Well, that's the end of this episode. Thanks for listening. And if you like what you heard, why not tell a friend about this podcast? It's available in all the usual locations. Until next time,